Hey everyone, great to see you here this Wednesday evening. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jon from the Snorkel team, and we're really excited that you're here with us. That was some dramatic music for diving into Snorkel, but I hope it's going to be that kind of night. We're going to have a little bit of fun together, and I'm really excited to get to share more of Snorkel with you. I know on this call we've got folks who have used Snorkel many times in their classroom before, and we've got some brand new folks here as well, and all of you are super welcome and excited to have you here. In tonight's call, my goal is to really give an overview of how Snorkel works and how you can utilize Snorkel in your classroom with your students. I put a quick agenda up here on the screen, but I'm going to share a little bit about why Snorkel, what's the power of Snorkel, and how do teachers use it in their classrooms. I'll share a little bit of that student experience in Snorkel as well as the teacher experience, and then share some ideas about how to get started with Snorkel. There'll be some time at the end for questions. If you've got questions, feel free to drop them in the chat throughout, and myself or someone from our team will work to answer those as quickly as possible and incorporate them into what we're sharing here tonight. If you've used Snorkel before, I hope that we're going to offer something maybe a little bit new that you haven't seen or used yet in the platform. And if you're brand new to Snorkel, really excited to get to share it with you. So with that, we're going to dive in. And I just want to start off by sharing a little bit about what Snorkel is and why we're called Snorkel. So if you have had the pleasure of running into my co-founder Jeff or I at any of the conferences, you've seen us walking around in our Snorkels, and we have a lot of fun with this and get a lot of attention. And our name Snorkel comes from this idea that with really simple tools, we can do really powerful things, right? With a mask and a tube, you can dive underwater and you can see the world in a different way. And with Snorkel, we also want to give teachers tools to see their student thinking in a different way, to allow students to see their thinking and learning in a different way, and give students really powerful feedback on their thinking and teachers really powerful insights into their student thinking. And so that's where that name comes from. And I myself my background is in the high school math classroom. My co-founder, Jeff, his background is in the 5th grade elementary school classroom. And we think that students in every classroom have really rich ideas that are worth seeing, that are worth celebrating, that are worth giving feedback on, and worth teachers having insights into as they are preparing their lessons and teaching and learning and all the things that happen in the classroom. And so Snorkel is a tool for students to share their thinking and get immediate feedback from AI. And you can do this in any number of settings. And I'm excited to share a few of those with you here tonight. We're going to go with that screen right there. Great. So this is our homepage. Snorkel.app is where you can find us. And I'll share some more information about where you can find us and get logged in. And you can actually create a free Snorkel account tonight if you haven't yet already. But Snorkel.app is our website. And in Snorkel, there are pre-created activities, and you can create your own activities for any content area and any grade level. And so we support students to share and explain their thinking in math class, in ELA reading class, in Spanish class, in social studies, and science, any subject area where you want students to talk and share and explain, or write and draw and show and get feedback on their work. Just for a quick snapshot here of what different Snorkel activities can look like. Snorkel activities can look like students responding to a math question from their teacher. I'm going to show you how this works in just a second with this math problem here, but you can also use Snorkel for students to respond to a question about a reading and understanding what the author's asking in that reading. You can use Snorkel to have students actually read a story out loud and get feedback on their reading fluency. You can use Snorkel to have students respond to questions and prompts in Spanish class using their Spanish language, or German class, or Chinese, or Mandarin, all sorts of different options to support students in a variety of different settings with Snorkel. And in science class, you can have students analyze the results of a scientific experiment, look at a data table, share and reflect on their learning so that they get the opportunity to be celebrated in that learning and they get that feedback. So with that, I want to dive into an actual student experience in Snorkel and show you what that looks like. So here's an example from our Snorkel library, some of the pre-created content that's in there. When students open up a Snorkel question from their teacher, they see that question on a digital whiteboard and they have different tools to respond. So they can draw out their thinking, they can type their thinking, they can actually even upload an image of their thinking if they did it on paper. And what makes Snorkel really unique is we allow students to actually go deeper than just sharing an answer, but to actually record and explain their thinking. And so when students are ready, they press this purple record button and Snorkel begins capturing their voice and what they're doing on the screen. I'm going to model this elementary school math problem here real quick so you get a sense of what that process looks like for students and then the feedback that students get afterwards. So I'm going to press this record button and start. It says that Lee has 6 feet of blue ribbon and some red ribbon. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw some blue ribbon and I'm going to draw some red ribbon. It said that she has 9 feet of ribbon altogether. So I'm going to label this whole thing I know is 9 feet. And the blue ribbon was 6 feet. I'm not quite sure yet how much red ribbon she has. And then it says she bought 2 more feet of red ribbon. And so I'm going to draw an additional 2 feet here of red ribbon. And the question is, how much ribbon does she have now? Well, if she had 6 and a total of 9, 6 feet of blue ribbon and a total of 9 feet, that means she must have at some point had 3 feet of red ribbon there. And 3 feet of red ribbon plus the 2 feet of red ribbon that she got means that now altogether she has a total of 5 feet of red ribbon. All right, so I'm modeling here what that student experience looks like. Students get to share and explain their thinking in a really rich way, right? In the way that if I could sit down with my students one-on-one in class every day, I would want them to explain their thinking to me. The challenge, of course, is there's one of me and there's 30 of my students, and so I don't get that opportunity every day to do that. But with Snorkel, students record and show and explain their thinking. And when we press that submit button, the AI will begin analyzing it to give that students personalized feedback on their response. And it's going to give me feedback here on both what I showed visually on the screen and also my verbal oral explanation that I gave for how I solved this math problem. I got it correct there. I got a 4 out of 4, and I get some praise specifically on what's happening in my work, celebrating my strategy, the way that I used it, and even the explanation that I gave. This is pretty exciting. As a student, I can have that feedback read aloud to me. I can actually use that feedback right away to respond again if I need to make an improvement in my work. And one of the things that we hear from teachers all the time is their students are trying Snorkel activities 1, 2, 3 times without being asked to try it again. And I think about what a powerful thing that is for students to feel that motivation to try again, to feel that ownership over their work, that they want to try again, and to get that really personalized, specific, immediate feedback on their thinking to be encouraged and able to try again. One last thing here on the student side that I want to share that I think makes Snorkel so powerful is that Snorkel allows students to share their thinking in over 40 different languages. And so if you've got new to country students, if you've got students who are multilingual learners, they have the opportunity here, to practice their English and practice explaining, but also the opportunity here to capture their thinking in their native language and actually get feedback back in that language. On the teacher side, teachers get these really awesome artifacts of their student thinking from across the class, and the AI is automatically categorizing it, sorting it, and helping teachers to make sense of it. And so as students submit their work, the AI attaches the score to that student work. You can quickly scroll through and look at that student work across your class. If we jump into a student who perhaps got this wrong, we can actually see that even though sometimes students get things wrong, they may still get a 3 out of 4 for their explanation because there's good thinking happening in that student response that deserves celebrating. If you take a look at this student response here, Anthony got this incorrect, but he actually did several steps that were on the right track. He drew a rectangle. He recognized that the perimeter was 146 centimeter. He took a great first step in subtracting, but he forgot that rectangles have 2 sides that that are the same length, and he needed to subtract that twice. And so you'll see here specifically in the feedback is prompting students really specifically about where they can re-examine their work, where they can try again and improve. And they have opportunities to have the opportunity then to use that feedback, like I said, right away and re-record and re-respond. Students' work gets saved. So every time that the student tries again, the teacher can see all of those attempts here on their dashboard. Teachers can actually download student scores here in the top right-hand corner. And the Insights tab, this is pretty cool. Snorkel will actually analyze student work from across the whole class to give you insights into trends in student thinking. I worked at a school for many years where we did a lot of looking at student work protocols. I know that good instruction is driven by really knowing how your students are doing across your class and being able to support them with where they're at, making student thinking the center of what teaching and learning is all about. And so this Insights tab shares exemplars from across the class that I might leverage for instruction. And then it also identifies trending errors in the student work and who's making those mistakes. So I immediately know who I might pull for small groups or where I might go to provide extra support. Snorkel is doing all this automatically based upon any activity that you put into the platform here. And as a teacher, you can choose from our pre-created library, or you can upload and create your own. Snorkel also keeps track of student work over time. And so if I back up here to the class level, there is a progress view where I can see student scores across multiple activities over time. It's almost like a gradebook view. I can actually jump into those student responses and take a look at that student work. So if you haven't tried this out yet, I'm really excited for you to get a chance to try this with your students, get them snorkeling. We hear all the time that students actually really love the challenge and the support and getting that immediate feedback on their thinking that can really validate what they're doing and help support them to make improvements. I'm going to pivot here slightly away from math just to talk about some of the other use cases for Snorkel. And then I'm going to show you how you can actually create your own Snorkel activities and some ways that you can get started with Snorkel in your classroom. And so outside of math class, I previewed this a moment ago, but one of the ways that you can use Snorkel in an English or an ELA class is by asking students comprehension questions. These can be questions about a text that is on the screen, or it can be questions about a larger book. And there's a lot of flexibility here as to what Snorkel can do. When you set up a question like this in Snorkel, Snorkel is going to analyze what you've put on the screen to develop an answer key and show it to you as the teacher so that you can customize what the AI is looking for in that student's response. We do that work for you first, where AI will generate that automatically, but we think it's really important that as teachers, we have direct control over what are the things that we know we've talked about, perhaps the themes we're trying to pull out, the things that we discussed in class today. That should inform what we're looking for in that student work. And so as a teacher, you have the opportunity to actually adjust and customize that on any activity. Another way that Snorkel can be used, and I'm really excited about this one because this feature is actually relatively new. There was a email that just went out this week, but Snorkel actually also can analyze students' reading fluency. And so when you create a Snorkel activity that is about reading fluency, students, when they read about that passage, they can also get feedback on their pronunciation, on their intonation, on pacing, on all the parts of good reading fluency. The experience looks very similar to what you just saw, where students press that record button, they make their recording, and then it will pop up with some feedback on their reading. And then students, of course, can use that feedback right away to try again. We have just a couple of pre-created reading fluency activities in the Snorkel library. More are coming, and really excited to share that with you over the next few weeks. Snorkel can also get used in world language classes. And so here's an example from our Spanish world language activities. There's only a handful of pre-created ones in there right now, and we're creating more. I'm really excited to share those with you, but you can also create your own. And so in this task here, students would examine how Miguel is related to these various people of the family and press that record button and respond in Spanish. Because this is a Spanish activity for Spanish class, students are going to be required to respond in Spanish. And if they respond in a different language, the AI is going to catch them and let them know, hey, try again. That's not a very strong response for Spanish class. If I submit this right now, it's going to say something about my English. In science class, again, lots of opportunities to post the phenomena that you're discussing in class, have students share and reflect on data from a table or an experiment. And again, we've got a library of pre-created content in science. I want to jump to a little bit more of that teacher view and how you can get started in Snorkel if you've never used Snorkel before. I'll show you both how to select something from the Snorkel library, and then also how to create your own activities in Snorkel. I know there was a question here in the chat just a moment ago about student writing in Snorkel. And so students can use the text box features in Snorkel to type and write a response as well. And the AI can analyze that and give them feedback on their writing. So there's a lot of versatility built into the platform there. When students are doing a writing response in Snorkel, they're still going to use this same record button. So they're going to use that text box. Oops, I'm on the wrong screen there. They're going to use that text box. They can type in their response. And then they're going to actually click that record and record just for a second and then submit. That will take that visual image to analyze it and give them feedback. What we found is that Snorkel activities are really rich when they include student voice, and we really encourage teachers to, especially if they're trying Snorkel for the first time, ask your students to talk and explain out loud. I know for some classrooms that can feel a little scary to have 30 kids talking at once, and at the same time, it can be a really beautiful thing. I know in my classroom when I would do a turn and talk, there could be a lot of noise happening in the classroom at once, but I know that there's a lot of opportunity for students to get really engaged and to share their thinking, which is why I did it regularly. And Snorkel is the same idea. We can get our students talking more in class. We can help students feel ownership of their learning and accountable to their learning by getting them talking. And so I invite you, if you haven't tried it in class, having students talk and record, I encourage you to try it. We actually use an AI tool to capture the student's voice. And so it does a really good job of following that student's voice through the length of the whole recording. And so even if there is some background noise, it will pick up that distinctive student's voice. Of course, if there's shouting around the room or a lot of commotion, that can interfere with AI. And so you have to make those choices around what fits best into your classroom. Typing is an option here. And it's actually something we're working to support even better in the very near future. We're working on an opportunity here to actually create some more writing specific assignments that don't have the audio recording, so that very soon here, later this spring, hopefully, you'll be able to just do writing type assignments in Snorkel with that same awesome feedback experience, and the student work automatically scored and all those other great things. All right, I took a little detour there. I want to jump back into how you can get started with Snorkel. And so our homepage is snorkel.app. If you go to that homepage, you can actually sign in and create a free account there. Free account gives you actually quite a lot of latitude to do all sorts of things. You can use Snorkel with your students with a free account. You can access our full library with a free account. There's just a couple of features around some extra assistance for students and some activity limits that are in place for around free accounts. But with that account, you can sign in, you can create an activity or find something from the library. So if you click on find an activity, it'll bring you to our Snorkel library, where we've got pre-created content for K-12 math, most of science and most of reading. A couple of the younger grade levels are coming out really soon. There's also a handful of example items down here for world languages, as well as some getting started activities if you're looking for a place to start. If you've never used Snorkel with your students before, this is my little pro insider tip. There's this really fun peanut butter and jelly sandwich question asking students to explain how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a lot of detail. And I will warn you, it is very demanding. You want to give a lot of detail, and that's sort of the point, right? It's going to be very critical if you forget to explain that you, for example, wipe off the knife in between putting the peanut butter on and the jelly on. And so it's just a fun, lighthearted way at no matter what grade level you teach or what subject. If you're trying Snorkel for the first time with your class, you can actually try out this peanut butter and jelly sandwich activity, assign it to your students, and get them snorkeling. When you assign a Snorkel activity, Snorkel will automatically generate a share link or code that you can share with your students just by clicking on it and copying it to your clipboard, and then you can post it on your learning platform. If I click go to activity, that will actually bring me to my dashboard where I'll be able to see all my student work from across the class. In here, I can also find that share code in the top right corner. And really importantly, there's a create response button here where I can actually try this activity myself and create my own response. So this is the peanut butter and jelly activity that's in the getting started. But again, there's a library of really rich, awesome materials in here, pre-created across a variety of contents and grade levels, and constantly growing. We're working really hard to add more great high quality content into the platform all the time. And really excited about some of the curriculum partnerships that we are building to help do that. We're really excited to announce that we just started a relationship with Jump Math, and are including more of their great content in our platform. And there's more partnerships like that coming really soon to Snorkel. So what happens if you don't see exactly what you need in Snorkel, or you have your own curriculum that you already use and love? Is Snorkel for you too? It is. Here's how you can use Snorkel with your own content. So from the Snorkel homepage, on the right-hand side, there's a create an activity button. And I'm going to go ahead and create an activity. So this is pretty simple to do. You can give it a title and then add content to that whiteboard. And so here you can type a question on this whiteboard. It can be open-ended. It could be really mathematical. Snorkel supports math at all levels. It supports science at all levels. It supports ELA content at all levels. Yeah, it's really versatile in what it can handle. You can also upload an image. And so if you've got your own curriculum that you use in class, you've got your own worksheets or documents that you've used before, you can actually just copy and paste. I've got a screenshot here of a physics question. I'm going to drop here on the whiteboard. And so now when my students open up this whiteboard, this is what they'll see. They'll be able to annotate it, interact with it, and record a response. I just have to give a quick shout out here. We just recently added manipulatives, which means that if there's anything you add to the whiteboard that you want students to be able to move around, you click on that manipulative button. Now students can also move that thing around, which might not be so relevant here for this green rectangle, but there's a lot of really cool use cases that you can do with that word bank, moving blocks around, all sorts of things. Once you've created that content on the whiteboard, we're going to go back to that activity setup page. And then it's just as simple as this one click here. There's this big purple button that says generate from question. And when you click this button, the AI will analyze what you put on that whiteboard to set up an answer key for you. And so here it's going to solve that question. It's going to show you what that answer is. And if it's an open-ended question, it'll actually generate criteria for success. Our goal here is to really save you time and create an opportunity for you to hone this into your particular learning goals in your classroom. And so it's identified that this was a high school science question. It gives me the exact text that was on that whiteboard, and it gives me a detailed description of the image that was on that whiteboard. It then goes on to give me a step-by-step answer for our solution for how to solve this question. One of the things I like to say, especially if you are in a humanities class, if you're asking something open-ended, we really encourage you, use that edit button there to customize that and make sure it matches up with your criteria. The AI is going to use this to guide how it gives all your students feedback. If you're in a math class or a science class, Snorkel does really a good job, really strong at solving math and science questions. I will point out there are a couple of places where sometimes this step in the process can struggle a little bit. If you put a complex geometric shape on there, the AI can struggle sometimes with figuring out what's happening in that shape. If you put a graph on that whiteboard, and the labels aren't very clear to the AI, it can sometimes struggle with reading that graph. So we always encourage folks, double check what the AI put here and make sure that it matches up with what you want to give to your students or how you want to give your students feedback. Once this is set up correctly, then you can use that question regardless of what it is. If it could be the most complex geometric image in the world, as long as you've set this up correctly, taken 60 seconds to review that and verify that it's right, that's what's going to guide how it gives all your students feedback so that you can feel confident that your students are going to get high quality feedback on their responses. When you press assign, you can assign it to a class. There's some extra settings here. You can actually allow students to see each other's work and interact with each other if you want. If you're on a premium account, you can turn on Snorkl Coach, giving students extra support if they're struggling, and then hit assign. One question that was in the chat just a second ago was around QR codes. If I click go to activity, there is a QR code also for this activity that I can share with my students. And so if you want to have students join that way, you can. I talked through a lot of things and I tried to go really fast, but these are the basics of Snorkl. We're really excited for you to dive in and start snorkeling. I want to mention that we are really proud of the work that we've done around trust and safety. We are in all 50 states at this point where I keep safe certified. And I know that how important that is, especially when students are recording, to make sure that we're treating that data with a lot of protection and respect and obviously taking care of it in really smart ways. And so we're happy to sign a data privacy agreement with your district if that's helpful. But really proud of the work that we've done around that data privacy and all of that. There are just a couple of minutes left here, and I want to just save a couple of last few minutes here if there's any questions that you want to drop in the chat. I appreciate the questions that have come in the chat already so far, but want to have a chance here to answer them and just say a huge thanks for diving in with us at Snorkl. I am going through the chat here. Yeah, great question from RJ. Can I adapt the AI feedback so students only see the comment and don't see the scores? Great question, RJ. You're not the first person to ask that. We actually have built that. We haven't released it yet publicly. If you shoot me an email here, my email is at the bottom of the screen, john@snorkl.app. I can enable that for you right now. You can try it out, let us know how it goes, and we're excited to learn from you. Just looking through the chat. Some questions around classes. Premium access. There's a question from Pedro here about premium access. We have a school pilot program. So would love to invite you to be part of that. It's $500 for unlimited school-wide access for the rest of the school year. If you want to join, I would love to get you and your team set up so that you can have unlimited premium access and try that out with your students. We also have district options available as well. There's a question here about matching rubrics in Texas. So when the AI sets up that answer key, you can adjust what the AI is looking for in that response. Currently, it's all set always to a 0 through 4 scale. So that piece, the numbers on the score are not currently customizable. We may add that capability in the future, but you can customize what the AI is looking for in a 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And have the AI be guided by your input there when setting that up. Rita, great question about how accurate it is with spoken Spanish. In the last 2 months, I think we've made a major development in getting a lot more accurate with language. the way that we were previously giving feedback on language was we were giving feedback basically on the transcript of what students said, whereas now we're actually analyzing that native audio to give feedback on things like tone and pronunciation, and we're catching a lot more errors around perhaps like conjugation being wrong. That is really recent. And so if you haven't tried it out recently, I encourage you to try that. Let us know what you think. We're always looking to learn and looking for feedback too. Would love to hop on a call with you and learn from your experience. Oh, great question, Pedro, around multiple tasks. So Snorkel is really a tool designed about going into depth with student thinking as opposed to breadth. And so Snorkel activities are set up to be a single whiteboard experience at a time. Certainly, there are teachers who will assign multiple whiteboard activities at a time. It's a really popular feature request that we get to be able to have multi-whiteboard activities, and something that we're really actively thinking about. What we found oftentimes is when a teacher maybe used to assign 10 questions, they're maybe only assigning like 2 or 3 Snorkel questions because it's really getting students into that deeper thinking and explaining. But it's definitely something that comes up quite a bit. So really appreciate you putting that in the chat, and would love your feedback on it, especially if you get a chance to try it out in class. Well, my contact information is right here on the screen. You can reach out to us at support@snorkel.app. My personal email there is john@snorkel.app. And I love talking to folks and love talking to teachers. And so would love to hop on a call anytime, learn a little bit about your own experience, share what we're working on next for Snorkel. I'll answer this one last question in the chat, but if you've got to go, we're already at a little bit past the half hour. So feel free to log off if you need to. Great question. The best way to roll this out to a school. One of the things that we've found has worked really well is getting teachers to actually try that student experience themselves. Getting teachers to have that aha moment of, oh, I just recorded and I got feedback that was actually way more in depth than maybe I've ever experienced on any computer interaction. Or I thought I gave a good explanation, but actually now that the AI is telling me I didn't, and I think about it a little bit more, maybe I didn't. And that's actually a really good realization to have, both as a teacher and as a student. And so if you have an opportunity to share it with staff and allow them to try recording a response, we think that's really powerful. If you get the opportunity to do that whole group, awesome. If you have the opportunity to just do that with teachers one-on-one, also great. And then once a teacher's trying it with their students, of course, it's always so much more meaningful to have for teachers to hear from other teachers about the impact that Snorkel's having with their classes. And I know if you're part of our Snorkel community, you've heard some of these stories from other folks in our community around, the new to country student who maybe no one really understood what they meant, and then suddenly they got a 4 out of 4 at Snorkel because Snorkel understood and validated it. The student who tries over and over, and again, the first time they don't really get it, the second time they're partway there, by the third time that they record, they feel really brilliant and celebrated in Snorkel. And so, if you get the opportunity to work with some teachers and let them try it both on their own and then in their classroom, we found that to be really powerful. And great question around writing. Snorkel, I would say, is great for if you want students to write a paragraph or 2, you can give good feedback on that. If you're having kids write an essay, Snorkel is probably not the right tool for it. We certainly have teachers who use it in that way. We'll have some teachers who will have students copy and paste some work on there and record a self-reflection. And it's something that we're really interested in exploring more into the future. But really, Snorkel is about getting that explanation going, getting that thinking going in sort of this different format. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Again, feel free to reach out if you have additional questions. Thanks so much for joining us here tonight, and happy snorkeling. Take care.